from the HELIX Center, which is a collaboration between the Royal College of Art and Imperial College London. We're actually part of Imperial's Institute for Global Health Innovation, and we're based at St. Mary's Hospital, which is right at Paddington Station, which is part of the Imperial College NHS Trust. We're essentially a design studio embedded in the hospital, so we work closely with clinicians, with patients, to identify problems at the front line of healthcare and create solutions, products and services both, to try and address those. That's our studio. Looks slightly different to the rest of the St. Mary's architecture, which is a good thing. The reason that we are different to a traditional design studio or any other design studio is our access. So this is the back of the head of one of our designers, Matt, and he's wearing his lanyard, which has his badge on it. That lanyard, that blue lanyard, allows him in to basically every part of the hospital. So in this picture, he's sitting in a multidisciplinary team meeting about cancer patients that are getting treatment. This is for a project we did around the cancer patient experience. So we really have a unique level of access that gets us into all different parts of the hospital and lets us see care from all different angles. So what do we mean by design? I'll start off with an example of a product that is mobile, it's data-driven, and it offers unparalleled access for doctors to patient information and care. It's this cart. This is a cart that sits in an outpatient clinic. It holds patient information, patient records, and is essentially the hub of the outpatient clinic. It's where doctors go to pick up notes, write notes, drop things back off for processing later on. It's essentially open access to anyone who wants to walk near it. Unfortunately, uptake of this invention is close to 100% in the NHS. But what I mean by that is tech is not just apps. So tech in healthcare, particularly in the NHS in the UK, is a bit stuck. Why is that? We think it's got a design problem. So tech isn't just apps. There are a lot of human factors as well that go into it and that need to be incorporated for tech to be successful. So one thing that we did was up to 20% of all outpatient clinic appointments in London hospitals are missed. It's called DNAs, or do not attend. We took a fairly low-tech approach and actually just used SMS, basic text messaging, but also incorporating a lot of behavioral cues or nudges, kind of behavioral economics, behavioral psychology. We did a randomized control trial with more than 20,000 text messages sent. There were 4 types: a control, which just said the standard, you have an appointment at this date and time. If you'd like to cancel, call this number that was in your appointment letter. Another that included that number for a bit of convenience. Another one that tried to create a bit of social pressure, kind of set the norm, that said 9 out of 10 people like you who have an appointment will attend. And the 4th one was cost. So it said, here's your appointment, call this number if you can't make it. By the way, if you don't show up, it'll cost the NHS £160. Through that, actually, and through the cost text message alone, that showed the most significant difference and reduced DNAs by 29% in relative terms. If that text message had been applied to every outpatient appointment, in England, we would have had 320,000 fewer do not attends in a year. So very low tech, but incorporating, again, the human factors to come up with a fairly substantial result. Another area where we used, again, pretty simple tech and a lot of behavioral cues was in bowel cancer screening. So compliance to bowel cancer screening can be as low as 35% in areas of high deprivation in England. In England, bowel cancer is the 3rd most common and 2nd deadliest cancer. It costs the NHS about £1 billion a year. So why is compliance so low? If anyone in here has done a bowel screening test, you'll probably know. It's pretty unpleasant. You need to take 3 different stool samples on 3 non-consecutive days. You need to swab the stool, put the swab onto this paper card here. And because it's non-consecutive days, on the days when you're waiting in between, you need to keep this card in your freezer next to your food. So really unpleasant, a lot of factors that really put people off to doing it. We went in and we spoke to patients and they said, yes, it's a bit gross. I don't understand why I'm getting this thing in the post. Is there something wrong? Is there something from my primary care record that says I need to do this? And also a lot of fear. They said, if I get cancer, then there's nothing I can do. So I don't want to know. So people just put off doing the test. What we did was we incorporated all of those things into some very non-tech ways. This leaflet is a pictorial instruction leaflet, so you change the instructions from words to pictures, Kia style, if you will, just to make it simpler for people. This piece of paper with the instructions is also a flushable stool catcher, so rather than having to take your stool out of the toilet, which is, again, put people off in a big way, we made it very easy for people to catch their poo, swab it, and then kind of do the test in a bit of a less gross way. The other thing we did, which you'll notice, is a QR code, which will take people to a website. So again, this is the kind of tech but low-tech way. So the website just allows us to get patients in contact with rich media. So we use videos, animated videos. We have, again, a website. You can have a lot more information, a lot more access to other sources of information about cancer, about bowel screening, about kind of how to do the test, instructional videos, and that kind of thing. So this is just a quick sound off and a bit of the animation that we have. So again, it explains to patients what is bowel screening, what is bowel cancer, clarifies the fact that if you catch this stuff early, you can do something about it, so it tries to allay some of that fear as well in a more engaging way than just paper. But we also do apps, so don't mind, I think it's just very low tech. So in the UK, 75% of hospital admissions and 90% of deaths related to asthma are avoidable. We want to find out why. So again, did some research, spoke to kids, doctors, parents, carers, and found out that 2 out of 3 kids don't fill in their asthma action plan. If you're unfamiliar with what an asthma action plan is, essentially this piece of paper, this chart, you get a plastic tube, it's about this long, that's that thing, to walk around with it. Breathe into it 3 times, a few times a day. You record the best reading, it's called your peak flow reading, and you're supposed to plot it out on the chart. What this does is if that line there that someone's drawn starts to tick downwards, you have to do a few interventions. You can, depends on the patient, but mostly it's, okay, take a few puffs of your reliever inhaler, occasionally we go see a doctor. But again, very important that patients do this all the time, even when they don't feel any symptoms, so that they know what their trends are. People don't do this, it's really boring. Kids mostly do this in the GP waiting room or in the parking lot on the way, so it's really unengaging. This device screams to everybody that I have asthma, and as a kid in school, it's probably not something you want to communicate to people. There are apps that exist. These are 5 different ones. They're, again, not the most engaging, not the prettiest things out there. They also still require that giant tube to use to get your peak flow measurement. So we said, okay, people still aren't using these. Why is that? And we created an app called Flute. This is essentially a game for kids that also the game happens to work when you measure your peak flow. So we've got a very simple input device. In this case, it's a whistle, but we're looking also at other devices as well. Kids pick a game, the animation's a bit slow. They blow into the whistle, and the sound becomes the dragon's fire breathing. The game is to, kill the bug. And they do that and unlock other games. So it becomes more of a let me play the game, and while I'm at it, I'll record some other stuff. The reason that this is, again, an app as opposed to just something a bit less tech is because the amount of information we can get on the phone and the analysis you can do now on the phone is fantastic. So the phone will record your data. It will also analyze the trend and say, okay, you know what? You've been decreasing in your peak flow ability, it's time to intervene. So it'll alert people. It can also record ambient data like pollen counts, pollution, temperature, and things like that. The last area we have is, again, healthcare. If you look at changes in increase in life expectancy over the last several years, you know that healthcare is a great place for innovation. And yet hospitals run on pagers and paper. Pagers, if anyone had one in the 90s, they're still the same exact pagers too. This is a handover meeting, so this is at a shift change, doctors and nurses sitting in a room looking at patient notes on paper. By the time these have been discussed, the patient notes are pretty much out of date, so not particularly useful. The other thing with pagers and paper is that they aren't necessarily conducive to managing really complex patients. So Mr. Smith on the top he's got a lot of things that have to happen, and one person cannot manage 33 different things in their head. Even if you're coordinating among 3 people, all of that will get lost in the general workflow and all the other patients you're dealing with. Also with pagers, the way that page works, or bleep works, is a nurse or a doctor on the ward bleeps the doctor on call, doctor calls back. Maybe you have to do a few times before they connect. And either the doctor on the phone will say, okay, nurse so-and-so, do this and this, and call me back if something will change. Or they'll say, let me come down there and do that myself. The problem is that none of that data actually gets captured. So we've created an app called HEART. This actually was recently acquired by Google DeepMind that came out of Imperial College. And again, it essentially itemizes all of these tasks, so all 33 of Mr. Smith's tasks that he needs done. Itemizes them, you can prioritize and reprioritize them, see what's overdue. You can also assign them to the most appropriate person instead of chasing people on pagers and on the phone. In testing, clinicians responded 37% faster using the HEART app as opposed to the phone. And 22 out of 24, about 90% of really critical factors about patient care were communicated more effectively using this. That's a quick, very quick overview of HELIX and what we do. Any questions?
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you.